Welcome back to Kleppers Corner, Today in History, the only show where we look at the calendar and say, wow, this date has seen more drama than a Real Housewives reunion. October 2nd is no exception. Today is not just another Tuesday in pumpkin spice season. It's a day that saw revolutions begin, uprisings crushed, judges sworn in, countries born, and oh yeah, Gandhi showing up to tell everyone to put down the rifles and pick up the salt. This date is like the Costco of history. You go in for one thing and end up leaving with a cart full of war, peace, and a Scottish guy with a mannequin head inventing television. So let's break it down one segment at a time. Segment 1, Come and Take It, the Battle of Gonzales, 1835. On October 2nd, 1835, the Texas Revolution kicked off. Not with a massive army, not with cannons roaring, but with a bunch of settlers standing around a 6-pounder cannon yelling, "Come and take it," which is also the unofficial motto of every drunk guy in a Waffle House parking lot. This battle is called the Lexington of Texas, which is just historian speak for the fight that was technically small but sounded cooler in the brochures. The Mexican army showed up like, hey, could we have our cannon back? And the Texans responded, no, but we did paint a flag about it. Imagine that, painting a flag overnight to make your point. Today, Americans would just tweet angrily in all caps, "Come and take it," second and basically full of junkyard scraps. And the Mexican troops were like, you know what? We've got orders not to escalate, so good luck with your yard sale shrapnel. They left and Texas was like, we won, which is like me claiming victory because I scared away a raccoon. But symbolism matters. That cannon shot set the revolution in motion. And of course, Texas never forgot it. Because if there's one thing Texans know how to do, it's remember an old fight and embroider it onto belt buckles. Segment 2, Warsaw's Desperate Stand, 1944. Fast forward a century to October 2nd, 1944, and the stakes could not be more different. The Warsaw Uprising came to a tragic end after 63 days of hell. The Polish resistance fought Nazis street by street, only to be betrayed when the Soviets sat on the other side of the river like, yeah, we're good, we'll just watch. It's the geopolitical equivalent of your friend saying they'll help you move, then texting, so sorry, can't make it, but good luck with the couch. Except instead of couches, it was Nazis with flamethrowers. The Germans responded with massacres so brutal it makes you sick to even read about them. When it was over, up to 200,000 civilians were dead, and 85% of Warsaw was rubble. The Poles called it betrayal. Stalin probably called it Tuesday. It's one of those moments in history that reminds you, sometimes the worst outcome isn't losing a fight. It's realizing the people you thought were your allies brought popcorn to watch you get crushed. Segment 3, Mussolini, Hitler, and Operation Typhoon, 1935-1941. October 2nd is also when fascists decided to mark their calendars for world domination. In 1935, Mussolini invaded Ethiopia. Italy used poison gas against farmers with spears, and the League of Nations responded with a strongly worded letter, which is basically the 1930s version of subtweeting. And in 1941, Hitler launched Operation Typhoon to capture Moscow. Spoiler alert, it did not go well. The Germans thought it would be a blitz. Instead, they discovered the Russian winter, which was less frosty fun and more Game of Thrones finale. Napoleon could have told them, yeah, it's cold, don't do it. But apparently history books were in short supply at Nazi HQ. October 2nd, a big day for fascists biting off more than they can chew and then choking on snowdrifts. Segment 4, Justice Served, Thurgood Marshall, 1967. Now let's turn from war to justice. On October 2nd, 1967, Thurgood Marshall was sworn in as the first African-American justice on the U.S. Supreme Court. And finally, America had someone on the bench who didn't think separate but equal was a clever slogan for segregated drinking fountains. Marshall had already destroyed segregation in Brown versus Board of Education. He was basically the LeBron James of the courtroom. You needed him on your team or you weren't winning. Southern senators tried to block him, asking him arcane questions about 18th century legal trivia. He probably thought, man, I argued against Jim Crow and you're me on Federalist Paper number 74? Really? Once on the court, he became its liberal conscience for decades, dissenting in death penalty cases, fighting for civil rights, and making sure future lawyers knew that justice isn't blind. It just squints at injustice until someone like Thurgood puts it in its place. Segment 5, Guinea's Leap of Faith, 1958. Meanwhile, in Africa, October 2nd, 1958, Guinea told France, "We prefer poverty in liberty to wealth in slavery," which is a baller breakup line if I've ever heard one. France responded by pulling out all their staff, sabotaging infrastructure, and taking light bulbs out of sockets. Imagine that. Your colonial ex literally unscrewing your lamps on the way out. That's the pettiest ghosting in history. Guinea turned to the Soviet Union for help and ended up on the Cold War front lines. But still, they stood tall, and October 2nd became their Independence Day. Lesson here, sometimes freedom costs you everything, including working light bulbs. Segment 6, Gandhi's birthday, 1869. October 2nd also gave us Mahatma Gandhi, a man so committed to nonviolence, he made fasting look like a political weapon. Gandhi's whole philosophy was, what if instead of guns, we annoy the British with salt, homespun cloth, and sheer persistence? And it worked. He took down the biggest empire in the world by being the most stubborn guy in history. Imagine the British military, redcoats, rifles, cannons, and Gandhi shows up in sandals saying, "Nah, I'll just march 240 miles for salt." And somehow, he wins. It's like defeating Darth Vader by knitting a sweater. Gandhi's legacy influenced MLK, Mandela, and every peaceful protest since. He proved nonviolence isn't passive. It's a force that shakes empires. Segment 7, Darwin Comes Home, 1836. October 2nd, 1836, Charles Darwin returned from his voyage on the HMS Beagle. He brought back fossils, birds, and the kind of notebook sketches that make high school biology teachers giddy. At first, he thought the Galapagos finches were just weird sparrows. Then John Gould said, "Dude, they're all different species." Darwin had his light bulb moment. Evolution. That's right. On this day, the man who would ruin every creationist Thanksgiving dinner came home with enough evidence to change how we see life itself. Without Darwin, we'd still think sloths were God's prank on gravity. Segment 8, Lights, Camera, Suspense, TV, Peanuts, Hitchcock, and Rock Hudson. October 2nd is also huge for culture. In 1925, John Logie Baird transmitted the first TV image. The first face on television? A mannequin head named Stooky Bill. Imagine inventing TV and saying, yes, this is the face humanity deserves. In 1950, Peanuts debuted. Charlie Brown, Snoopy, Lucy, icons born on this day. Charlie Brown never wins, Snoopy lives in his imagination, and Lucy is basically America's first life coach who got paid in nickels. Schultz turned childhood angst into philosophy, and suddenly comic strips had more depth than half the politicians in Washington. In 1955, Alfred Hitchcock Presents premiered. The man himself introduced stories of murder with deadpan humor that made you wonder if he'd personally buried the body. And in 1985, Rock Hudson died of AIDS, shattering Hollywood's silence on the epidemic. One man's tragedy forced America to finally talk about a crisis it had ignored. So October 2nd, the day we got television, cartoons that made us cry, creepy anthology thrillers, and a public reckoning with AIDS. Segment 9, Carandaroo and the Beltway Snipers. Not all October 2nds are inspiring. In 1992, police in Sao Paulo stormed Carandaroo prison, killing 111 inmates. Many were executed after surrendering. It became a symbol of police brutality and human rights failure. And in 2002, the DC sniper attacks began. Suddenly, pumping gas felt like Russian roulette. For 3 weeks, 2 men with a rifle in a car trunk paralyzed an entire region. It was terror on a budget. Proof you don't need armies to create panic, just a rifle and a beat-up sedan. Segment 10, Births, Deaths, and Irony. October 2nd is loaded with famous birthdays. Gandhi, Nat Turner, Groucho Marx, Sting, Annie Leibovitz, and Samuel Adams, who died on this same day. Adams fought for liberty in 1776, while the country he helped build kept millions enslaved. 3 years after he died, Nat Turner was born into that hypocrisy. History has a dark sense of timing. Also born today, Don McLean of American Pie, which means October 2nd gave us both Gandhi and the guy who wrote an 8-minute song about music dying. Coincidence? Maybe. But imagine Gandhi trying to get through that chorus. And deaths. Tom Petty died October 2nd, 2017. Rock Hudson, 1985. Samuel Adams, 1803. It's like the Grim Reaper has this date bookmarked. So there you have it, October 2nd, a day where cannons fired in Texas, cities burned in Poland, fascists marched, judges were sworn, colonies broke free, Gandhi was born, Darwin came home, TV flickered on, and Snoopy climbed onto his doghouse. It's a date that proves history is messy, tragic, funny, inspiring, and sometimes all at once. October 2nd isn't just a day. It's a crash course in the human condition. Conflict and compassion, destruction and innovation, tragedy and hope. And it reminds us that history doesn't move in straight lines. It stumbles, falls, picks itself up, and occasionally invents television with the dummy's head. So remember, folks, history doesn't just happen. It happens today.